USA is worried. It's worried about the nukes that China is accumulating and the rate at which it's building up its stockpiles. US officials believe that soon China will have a stockpile that's similar to Russia's. Just for context, would mean that China would have close to 10 times more nukes than it has now. This sudden focus on nuclear weapons should be worrisome for the whole world, but it's particularly worrisome for one country that CCP wants to replace as a superpower. On top of that, since the Ukraine war started, Putin has threatened to use nukes at least 160 times, so it makes sense that US officials have a plan to deal with a possible nuclear war, a highly classified plan no less. But somehow, the New York Times got hold of that plan and published it. So today, let's go over why the CCP is focusing on increasing its nuclear capabilities and how US plans to deal with it. Have you noticed that it is really difficult to find content like this on YouTube lately? Videos like this that discuss political and military issues tend to be drowned out by the YouTube algorithm. So if you can help us help you, just hit the like button below so that the algorithm knows not to hide these videos from you. Share it on social media if you think this information is valuable. And now, let's get started. It must be noted that with every presidential term that comes by, and as world politics develops, the plan is constantly updated and realigned to fit the need. It is kept electronically for maximum security, and only a small handful of hard copies are kept in the Pentagon and the White House. This year, during his term, President Joe Biden approved a revised strategy to the existing nuclear strategy called the Nuclear Employment Guidance. Although we do not have access to the full and complete revision, reliable sources have provided highlights of what shifts have happened in the current nuclear strategy. Now, Russia has always been a long-standing opponent in the nuclear space, but China has entered the ring, and this new plan has a focus on potential threats from Beijing. Experts report that in decades to come, China's nuclear power could rival that of America and Russia. The plan first focuses on why America sees China as a threat. China may not have as many warheads, but its sophisticated arsenal and planned delivery methods make it a notable opponent. The noted increase in China and Russia's collaboration and China's nuclear growth has shifted the strategy to incorporate China as a potential threat. The US's strategy is a flexible mix of deterrence and force, with the aim being to prevent Beijing from mistakenly concluding that it could gain advantage through any employment of nuclear weapons. Alongside the plans to deal with China, the document also contains a strategy for dealing with Russia and North Korea. The revision to the plan basically involves writing out a way to deter Russia, the People's Republic of China, and North Korea simultaneously. Russia's continuous brandishing of its nuclear weapons and North Korea's cooperation with Russia have given America good enough reason to anticipate attacks from these nations. The plan highlights these three nations and emphasizes the need for America to be vigilant. What will aid America in carrying out a potential three-way attack? The most interesting part of the strategy envisions America expanding its arsenal to meet the growing threat it's facing. In June, Pranay Vardi, a senior director of America's Security Council, reported that the changes in Russia and China's nuclear policy have led to America moving from maintaining and modernizing its arsenal to expanding it. The combined nuclear force of Russia, China, and North Korea already outnumbers America at the current moment. If America wants to have a fighting chance at all, it will need to rapidly increase its nuclear stockpile. By building its nuclear muscle, the US is looking to deter opportunistic aggression from China or Russia. Outside of the addition of China as a potential threat and the conversation around a trilateral attack, America's nuclear strategy remains more or less the same. America's strategy also focuses on maintaining its nuclear triad. Currently, the triad contains intercontinental ballistic missiles, submarine-launched ballistic missiles, and nuclear-capable heavy bombers. By keeping its missiles active and practicing open ocean targeting, America is staying on its toes to deal with potential threats. As both Russia and China have nuclear triads, it is important that America continues to maintain and refurbish its own. Additionally, America is working towards a nuclear weapons modernization program. Under this plan, the Sentinel Intercontinental Ballistic Missile Program will replace the Minuteman III ICBM. The latter is an older version of the ground-based strategic deterrent, and newer missiles are being developed to replace it. In terms of its submarines, the US is looking to phase out the Ohio-class SSBNs and replace them with the Columbia-class ballistic missile submarines. America is also looking to modernize its B-52H bomber, which is a long-range jet-powered bomber. America's constant modernization of its nuclear power means that existing weapons are constantly replaced or refurbished. In the next 20 years, about 3.7% of the Department of Defense's budget will be allocated to nuclear modernization, illustrating how serious America is about keeping its arsenal up to date. The plan also lists guiding principles on how America wishes to engage in nuclear warfare. The first important note is that the president, in this case Biden, as Commander-in-Chief of the US Armed Forces, is the only one with the authority to order the employment of US nuclear forces. The purpose of this is to centralize the use of nuclear power and prevent nuclear power from falling into the wrong hands. Secondly, in any strategy, the starting point is always to deter nuclear attack on the United States and its allies. Nuclear deterrence means that the US uses its nuclear weapons to dissuade other nations from using theirs. By keeping its arsenal up to date and constantly staying as a top competitor, the US is ensuring that its adversaries do not make dangerous miscalculations about what they can get away with. This principle is what we must remember to minimize panic about a potential nuclear war. Unlike nations like Russia and China, America has a very level-headed approach to its nuclear strategy. The use of nuclear weapons will only be considered in extreme circumstances to defend vital interests. In addition to these, what are other long-established parts of America's nuclear strategy? Developed in the 1960s, sponge theory is still a part of the strategy today. The strategy prepares nuclear-armed nations like America to soak up potential strikes from its enemies' nuclear attacks. America has made the locations of its missile silos public knowledge so that in the event of an attack, an opponent would first allocate a large part of its nuclear weaponry to hitting these missile sites. This would divert the attention from American cities and important infrastructure and focus it on taking out America's nuclear arsenal. Currently, America's missile silos are spread across 5 states: Montana, Colorado, Wyoming, Nebraska, and North Dakota. These silos are located in a portion of America known as the Great Plains. The land is 1 million square miles of endless nothingness, and the sparsely populated area makes it perfect for locating deadly missiles. In Montana alone, there are hundreds of nuclear missile silos with known locations. Each silo is 4 to 18 miles apart, protecting them from one fatal wipeout. This strategy of divide and conquer is ingenious, and the US has even gone as far as making the coordinates and maps available on Wikipedia. Another part of the strategy is known as mutually assured destruction, which ensures that an attack on one side leads to the destruction of both sides. As daunting as it sounds, this strategy is important in ensuring that opposing parties reach a stalemate. By spreading out its nuclear missile silos across large parts of America, Washington ensures that an attacking enemy cannot take out all its nuclear power at once. By staying on par with its nuclear competitors, America is balancing the scales and ensuring that its opponents do not get trigger happy. So, what are the implications of this plan? To begin with, America can kiss goodbye to any possible collaboration with China after its revised strategy. Beijing has not responded well to the New York Times report, which should be expected. A spokesperson from the Chinese speaking for the Chinese Foreign Ministry expresses that China is seriously concerned about America's new plan. The spokesperson is quoted saying, "The US is peddling the China nuclear threat narrative, finding excuses to seek strategic advantage. China is clearly tired of America running with the 'China is a nuclear threat' theory and sees nothing wrong with its actions. From China's point of view, As an emerging superpower, it is only right that it works on its strategic nuclear plans and works towards being on par with other heavyweights in the nuclear space. China thinks Washington is a bully, and the release of this plan may be a great disservice to America in the long run. While we applaud how America has handled itself thus far, could America's focus on deterrence as a strategy prove to be its undoing? This is probably the one time that being level-headed could be a problem. While America's plan is hyper-aware of the potential threat posed by its enemies, its aim to default toward deterrence could leave it vulnerable when nations like Russia come on the offensive. Watching China and Russia's aggressive approach, many argue that the US is not ready for a nuclear war. Adding to that, the revision to the current nuclear strategy simply raises alarm bells. Outside of increasing its nuclear arsenal, what else is Washington doing to gear up for this massive threat? On the political front, many have felt that the Biden administration has failed to adequately prepare. A congressional report argues that the administration's stated and preferred policies really have not measured up to the really dangerous times that we're living in.